What I think the upside is, our revenue generating potential is in the billions of dollars annually. There should be some multiple to that.
You can put any multiple on it. It's a lot more than a $70 million market cap.
Any number from where we're sitting right now, we're a $2 stock. This stock's a buy at 10. It's a buy at 15. It's a buy at 20.
Welcome to The Upside with Lou Basenese. What if I told you that you could reverse a disease potentially and give the ability for someone to retain motor skills, regain motor skills from a disease as nasty as Parkinson's? Well, that could be possible. Think Michael J. Fox going back to the future as his real self and coming back and having a cure for that. I'm fortunate to be with the CEO of Gain Therapeutics today, who's going to explain how AI and protein development can actually lead to a future that may include such a breakthrough. All right, Gene, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Lou.
I've set the stage here where this could be a really big discovery, which probably rings a lot of bells and warning signs for all the lawyers that, want us to disclaim everything, but we'll cover that and all the disclaimers on screen. What are you doing here, right? Your background, I always like to say, start with personal. Yeah. You started off as a healthcare analyst, Fordham chemistry degree, got into CFO, CEO roles. Why Gain Therapeutics?
Well, actually, Lou, I was supposed to play second base for the Yankees.
Yeah.
Someone else got that job.
Who was it?
At the time, well, it was really shortstop. It was Derek Jeter actually got the job.
He locked it down.
Yeah. So I was actually shortstop. I would have moved to second base for Jeter.
Yeah, for Jeter. I mean, look, as a diehard Yankees fan, you got to make that move.
Yeah. So all kidding aside, I although it's not really much of a joke, I really did want to play Yankees. So I wanted to be a physician early on. I wanted to be a surgeon. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. My brother's a heart surgeon. We have that thing going on where do one better.
Competition.
Something like that. And he's very, very successful cardiothoracic surgeon. I went down the path. I deferred medical school for a year so I could do some research at Columbia University. It was there I learned that medicine in the mid-90s, now this is going back into ancient times, from the late 1900s. That's where I'm from. I'm from the
I'm a 90s kid.
So from the late 1900s. I tell my kids I'm from the late 1900s, so I don't know. So the original plan was neurosurgeon. So I did some research in order to get a jump start on that. In between college and medical school, I did a couple of years of research at Columbia University in the Department of Interventional Neuroradiology.
Okay.
I fell in love with science. I fell in love with research. I fell in love with the interface with the patients and treating and the medical students rotating in. And there was all this, cognitive power towards very, very significant diseases. And, at Columbia Center of Excellence, you're around people that maybe only 4 or 5 other guys on the planet can do what they do. So it's all cutting edge stuff.
So you were into the challenge because now you're with a company that is trying to address some of the most challenging degenerative diseases. How does that come about? Where you end up at Gain Therapeutics? What are they doing uniquely that attracted you?
Yeah. So when I was done with the medical school endeavor and deciding where to go next, I became a healthcare analyst on Wall Street. One of the companies I covered was this company called Gentium, and the CEO of that company is the scientific founder and chairman of Gain Therapeutics.
Okay.
So way back about a dozen years ago, I came across this company called Gentium, and Khalid Islam was the CEO of that company. And in the process of just covering the company and getting up to speed on his technology, his drug, we formed a relationship and a mutual respect that carried on for the next 10 years or so. And then back in January, we took a couple runs at working together, but the timing was never right. And then in January 2024, he had a CFO who went off to do something in Europe. And he said, hey, would you take a look at Gain Therapeutics? And he already knows the answers to questions he asks. Right. He knew I'd be interested. He knew it was neuro, it was Parkinson's. This is an area that was imprinted on me early because of the work at Columbia. Yep. So it was a natural, it was a natural, organic sort of coming together. And that's why, and really the reason why I'm at Gain primarily is we have an opportunity to develop the first disease modifying drug in Parkinson's disease. Now, what does that mean exactly?
Because look, you look back, I don't know that everyone understands a disease modifying drug. I've seen it happen with diabetes, type 1 diabetes with Prevention Bio. right? The biggest evolution since insulin, probably the introduction. So you're saying you have a similar opportunity here. Okay.
Let me give you an anecdote. So we just came out of the MDS conference, Movements Disorders Conference in early October. And usually at these things, they have the keynote speaker. This year it was Michael J. Fox, right?
Yeah.
And, he was, in the beginning of this interview, he was having this great interaction about acting, what it meant to him and all these other things. And then the conversation moved around to Parkinson's disease, and his whole demeanor just changed on camera. And at one point he just kind of paused, he got quiet, and he looked at us, the collective field out there who's developing Parkinson's disease drugs, because we're all out there, right?
Right.
And he just said, it's 20, where are the therapeutics?
Wow.
We've been doing this for 20 years. Where are the therapies?
And
what he means by that is, we've done a really good job developing dopamine and dopamine analogs to try and alleviate some of the symptomology of Parkinson's, but nothing gets on top of the biology that's going wrong and why these patients, the reasons why these patients have the movement disorders, the cognitive dysfunction, all the other things that go on, GI stuff. There's multiple symptomology with Parkinson's disease, all resulting from these toxic substrates. We've got to get to those.
Right. So he was making that very human appeal of he's been a backer, a public sufferer of it, and saying how are we not anywhere further?
He stepped out. I would have to say, I don't want to, I don't, because Michael, if I don't want to, I don't want to suggest anything, but it seemed like the public persona slipped away for a minute. He was patient for a second. Yeah. He was pleading with us.
Interesting.
Come on.
Yeah. We're going to get into science a little bit more, but let's talk first latest developments, right? So coming off of that conference, you guys have had data released recently that's giving some indication of what your drug could do. So what's the latest developments, and then what are the next catalysts that people can look for? Yeah,
so we were able to show after 3 months of treatment with our compound, a reduction in some of the symptomology in Parkinson's disease. Is really, really encouraging result.
So what are the main symptoms that you saw the changes on more significantly?
So we see changes and improvements in motor function and other things, sensory types of things. Like you hear anecdotally, the patients were only on drug for 90 days, and Parkinson's is a slow moving disease. So the improvements that you see may take place over time. If you are going to see improvements, what we really want to do is just halt the progression of these symptoms.
Right.
So you'll hear other anecdotal things like improvement in smell. All of a sudden, a patient after, notices that they can smell. So we had reports of that, improved balance, things like that.
Is it like a spontaneous reintroduction of the ability to smell? Like
from
I'm
what
thinking
we know
COVID,
now,
right? You lose your smell and then all of a sudden it comes back.
Well, we think it's related to GT02287. We think it's related to this biology, right? So we're not just improving movement and tremor. It's like, the symptomology that we seem to be impacting is kind of spread out. To me, that suggests we are impacting the disease progression, not the symptoms. We're getting underneath all that.
So you're actually getting to the root cause of it, the toxin buildup.
I believe we are based on
I
believe we are based on the clinical outcomes that we've been seeing. What we have to do now to tie the two ends together is understand the biological rationale for why that's happening. So we have to look at these patients' blood and their cerebral spinal fluid, see what's happening inside the body that is mostly driving these improvements.
But so the latest results, obviously, right? You're in phase 1. You're not supposed to get any efficacy indications. It's all safety oriented. Right.
We had prepared investors and everybody. Look, don't look for any improvement in this particular scale, the MDS UPDRS scale. That's the functional outcome scale that we saw the improvement of. Don't expect anything.
And that's the universal one they evaluate for all other drugs that are trying to treat Parkinson's.
That's exactly right. That is the regulatory endpoint you need to achieve for approval by the FDA.
Got it.
We had prepped everybody saying, look, just don't. We weren't sandbagging. It's just the reality of the disease. It's a very slow moving disease. What we needed to show in this study was that we weren't killing people.
Yeah.
And that, it was safe and tolerable.
Right.
But we're a small biotech company. We need financing. So we're going to look for signals of efficacy. But we didn't want to set the expectation for that here. We just didn't think it would happen. And lo and behold, here it is.
Here it is. So what are the next catalysts? Is it additional data from this trial and the patients that have been dosed? Is there additional patients, undergoing dosing? Has everyone continued? And how does that lay out for people?
Yeah, it's great that they improved, that their symptoms improved, but this wasn't a placebo-controlled study. So now what we have to do in order to provide more rational rationale for why they improved, rather outside of a placebo effect, is to look at this biology. We have to look at their cells, see what happened inside these patients that we can tie to why they may have improved. And we think we have that. We think we're going to have that.
Okay.
And we'll have it by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. So exciting, because
it is really exciting.
You can really identify the source. And then I always think investor first, right? So let's talk a little bit about the climate for biotech's phase 1 into phase 2 getting data. It's starting to improve.
Yes.
Knock on wood.
Yes.
Please. But what do you see as, what's the next step? Say the data continues along this trend line. It's good. Is it partnership? Is it go into the clinic on your own into a phase 2 that maybe could be registrational? Again, unaware of what the path, the regulatory approval path is here. I'm more familiar with cancer therapies. Yeah.
So a couple of things there, right? So first, in terms of, do we partner this or do we finance it on our own? If that data is there at the end of the year, it's going to be choose your own adventure or a combination.
Not many people remember those choose your own adventure books, man. We do, man. Go to page 9. Merck is a buyer.
You're going to do this way or do that. So for sure, it's going to be a choose your own adventure. We're going to have some pretty probably spirited discussions on whether or not we want to do this alone with the cash we can raise, or if we want partnership to help us navigate some of the things we probably can't do as well on our own. And I think it may come down to a combination of the two things.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, those will
exciting.
be good problems to have.
It will be life-changing problems to have for lots of people, including Parkinson's patients.
All right, so let's take a step back and talk about the technology a little bit, right? So I've always described this as it's a combination of AI, which is the hottest buzz here in every industry, and machine learning, and you're using that to discover potential drugs that can be used to impact degenerative diseases.
That's right.
Right? That are caused by, in my understanding, is a protein misfolding, which has all these downstream effects and causes the buildup. It's like, I use the analogy of the kinked hose, which you've talked about before. When you have the garden hose that's kinked and you unkink it, the water flows and everything restores to normal. You can complete your honeydew list and it's done.
Exactly right.
What's the specifics of it? Is that analogy appropriate? And then what's the more scientific?
There's a couple good analogies for it. I'll give you one more. So what our compound does is it stabilizes a particular protein in the cell that is responsible for a lot of housekeeping and a lot of maintenance. Okay. If you have a housekeeper, right? If she doesn't show up for 3 or 4 weeks, what's happening in that house, right? Yeah. You got garbage piling up. It probably doesn't smell good. There's all these.
I have a teenager. That's what we use.
There you go. So baselines. You have that baseline. So you have all this stuff accumulating and it's and the house isn't functioning correctly, right? So with this, what our molecule does is basically goes and finds that cleaning lady and drags her back to the house and holds her hand while she goes and picks up everything and cleans up. This might be the wrong analogy to use.
Yeah, might be. We're wrong with the cleaning person.
Cleaning person.
Our family of children that we have now teaching the merits of hard work.
Yeah, right.
Manual labor.
So like this particular molecule holds the hand of the maintenance person, cleaning person, whatever it is, to restore the house to order. That's the best way. So think about, so it's not just a hose that's kinked, right? It's the garbage piling over. It's the sink that's growing mold. It's any one of these things. It's not a place you want to be in, right? It's not a place, the air is not working, the heat's not working. You don't want to be there.
So it restores it back to normal functioning condition, right? Exactly. Using the body's natural immunological responses to do that with the drug.
Right.
So you're seeing with that it actually could have not just a halting the progression, but reversal potentially, right?
What we think there is once we can stop the onslaught of toxic buildup in the brain, right? And once we can take that stress away, you can't restore dead brain tissue or dead neurons, right? But we can entertain a conversation about brain plasticity. These patients don't have an opportunity to regenerate any new neural networks because they're under constant assault from Parkinson's.
Now you're removing that external pressure.
Then maybe we give patients time to build new neural networks on their own, and you will see improvement. You will see gait improve. You will see sleep improve because over time, the brain does have the ability to map out new neural networks.
So would that be similar to someone that gets paralyzed and it can restore some motor functions? I mean, is it, again, thinking about the brain, like that plasticity to keep relearning or reconnecting things that once were there?
Yeah, exactly. So when you hear about stroke victims who are able to restore, like some of that is the brain just restoring. It's the brain fighting through to regenerate connections that can do the same tasks.
Got it.
And the brain's fascinating that way, and we don't understand a lot of it because in Parkinson's particularly because it's under constant assault.
Yeah. So this is not just a single drug. This is more of a platform. So there's potentially other diseases that you could treat, but Parkinson's is the lead candidate. What are some of the other areas you can go
into? This particular Housekeeper is important, is necessary for a lot of, it needs to do a lot of work. So there's things like Gaucher's disease where we think there might be some application there. Alzheimer's, the enzyme target of our drug is also implicated in Alzheimer's. And we've looked at a model of Alzheimer's, and we see a reduction in the toxic substrate that builds up with Alzheimer's. That's a whole nother can of worms. We're not going to worry about another indication for GT-02287 till we're well into phase 2, which is our next development phase. But it's piping hot in terms of what we can do.
And so that's why there's so much excitement, I would imagine, too, about this data that you recently released, because it's indicative of potentially the same efficacy potentially with other diseases that are hard to treat, right? I mean, Alzheimer's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's nothing that we know of that is arresting the development of it. There's a lot of drugs that have tried. Wasn't there a contentious approval years ago for an Alzheimer's drug?
Yeah. There's something. There's a drug that's modestly efficacious in certain patient populations,
right?
And it was, there was some negotiation between the sponsor of that drug and the FDA, and a lot of FDA members quit on the approval of that drug and wound up getting pulled off the market. Probably shouldn't have been approved. It's hard to say. I mean, look, in neurodegenerative, I just came off a panel today on our way here. We were at a conference with a neurodegenerative disease panel that I sat on. And it was sponsors developing ALS drugs, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's like us.
Yeah.
And we're all lamenting the fact that just no progress. It's just not, it's a vast wasteland of drug development.
Which opens up the opportunity for regulatory approval for something that shows any meansides progress.
The wind's at our back.
Yeah.
The wind is at our back from a regulatory perspective, because the FDA understands the need. I mean, both sides of the political spectrum, and this is, I don't know, anybody can say this about anything. Both agree.
Not nowadays.
Both agree that we should be focusing on neurodegenerative diseases. Parkinson's, particularly, there's a lot of veterans with Parkinson's disease. And that's one way to get the government's attention. If our military veterans are suffering from something, and they start to take notice.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of bipartisan support to get things done in neurodegenerative diseases. We think that helps us a lot, because we're not going to get into a political, like, this isn't a vaccine. We don't have to worry about any of those kinds of things. I don't think that, the current Secretary of Health and Human Services is going to be adverse to a Parkinson's drug or even opine. So we feel like, from a regulatory perspective, the FDA, if we show them the evidence, the FDA will be collaborative with us. And I don't think that they'll want to get this in the hands of clinicians. That will be everybody's. Let's get this in the hands of clinicians.
And then that opens the door, that progress, to do other things, like you said, with Alzheimer's potentially, and explore that under the right terms and conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have backup compounds to this particular lead that we have in clinical studies that go after the same target, in some cases even more potently.
Okay.
So we might be able to advance.
And are those pre-IND studies that have been done already?
Yeah, Okay. So we're in preclinical testing in one particular one that we could potentially move to the clinic next year.
Okay.
Which we're really excited.
So this is a platform that has been thought out and is going to be executed upon as you hit key milestones.
Yeah, like think of iPhone, right? They're already working on 18, 19, right? They just had 17, 18, 19.
I think I have a 12. No, I'm just kidding.
but honestly, like, we're already thinking ahead of what the next molecule should do based on what we're seeing in the clinic now. Like, what we have is great. And I think we have the first disease modifying drug in Parkinson's. I can't wait to see what we got behind it, though.
Yeah. All right. So let's move from the science to really the competition. Is there any competition, and what's the market, right? Like, how many patients are impacted by Parkinson's disease? What is the, are we talking a CAR T therapy here that has a price tag of maybe 300 to 700,000 plus, or is it, where's the market size look like from an opportunity? And I hate to put that out there, but as investors, we think about that, even though there's human life involved.
Well, yeah, but that's the only way we can get the next advancement too. There has to be some profitable pursuit.
It's got to have a double bottom line. Impacts humanity, but impacts investors.
Yeah, so we can invest back in, right? Yeah. So we can go take the next step.
Right.
So there's 1 million Parkinson's patients in the United States alone.
Wow.
We used to call the other companies competition, but no one's doing exactly what we're doing. There are other companies that are targeting the same protein that we are, but in different ways. And we actually think there's an opportunity for combinations of some of these things.
Interesting. Are those publicly traded companies or
private companies right now?
All private.
We're the only, as far as I know, we're the only publicly traded company with glucocerebrosidase. That's the long word salad target that our molecule goes after.
I'm not going to try and say that 3 times or once.
But we're the only publicly traded company, I think, that has a solid we call it GBA1 Parkinson's program. But at conferences we talk about our data. I want them to succeed in what they're doing, so that makes our job, it validates our program first of all.
Right.
And I think that there's not going to be one single Parkinson's drug.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't see that in any other disease.
You're the only one that's the GBA1, right? But we think of GLP-1s, right? Like now you have Lilly and Novo Nordisk, and then Pfizer's trying to get in it. So obviously you could open up a whole class of drugs.
Well, think about cancer. Think about cancer and how personalized that has gotten, right?
Yeah.
So they're down to specific genetic mutations that are, criteria for treating patients with certain drugs.
Right.
And I think Parkinson's, it's a very heterogeneous disease. There's a lot of different phenotypes, a lot of different presentations of Parkinson's.
For the layman, the phenotypes or the genetics differences,
the different presentations
based upon geography kind of and genetically. I mean,
just presentation. So some patients present first with cognitive dysfunction, right? We saw that with Ryan Reynolds' father, right? Yeah. So he presented with a cognitive issue first that they didn't. And so Parkinson's was a delayed diagnosis in that case, because it's usually a motor. It's considered a motor.
I think that's what everyone notices or
is that
associates with it.
Some patients obviously most patients present with motor symptoms first, but you can lose smell, you can lose other sensory perception, you can have GI disturbances. Those are all Parkinson's. It affects the entire brain.
Yeah.
So you can imagine it affects multiple systems. So
you just don't know where the toxic deposits are going to be placed throughout the body, throughout the house, where the mess is going to be made and impacted and felt.
Yeah, exactly. So, and every patient's there's a lot, there's more differences than similarities.
Yeah. So let's talk then. So not any direct competitors, a lot of potential collaborators. There's an obvious market desire for everyone to succeed because it's going to help the patients and could be in combination. What about risk? What are the other risks? I mean, outside the typical, does the drug work as well? Does it hit the endpoints? Is it financial risk? I mean, when you're up at night, lamenting the fact that our Yankees lost, what are you worrying about this company's success? Yeah.
So after I get over that, I'm thinking about it in 3 ways, right?
Okay.
So for a company of our stages in development stage, there's clinical trial risk, there's regulatory risk, and then there's commercial risk. Yeah. I'll work backwards. From a commercial risk, this thing fixes itself. I mean, there's no way to not put billions of dollars in revenue. It does 30% share of 1 million patients
it moves the needle.
We're over $5 billion in revenue with that, right? And in ways that save the healthcare system money, because these patients don't need the other support they would otherwise.
That's the other side of it, right?
Right. There's no
downstreaming ongoing expenses.
We're keeping them out of their nursing homes. We're keeping them active. We're keeping them working. Yeah. Right. So the healthcare system wants to pay for things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to achieve. And so the commercial risk here,
de minimis, if the drug works,
approaches zero.
Yeah.
It approaches zero. The regulatory risk kind of is in line with the need for as long as this is safe and well tolerated, we don't have a high efficacy bar. If we can just make a dent in the symptomology, then let's bring the next drug in. Let's get the next one after that and keep advancing the ball down the field. I don't know that like I said, there's not going to be only one disease modifying drug in Parkinson's. Right. There's going to be several. We've got to get them out there.
But being one of the first has its advantages, because I look at again, my knowledge is more based in the cancer side. And you look at when standard of care is only extending life for 2 to 3 months for like glioblastoma, and you can show 6 to 8, it's an approval, because that's double
exactly
right. So if you're in other cancers, so even here, if
you
can show
comparison.
Arresting the progression, that alone could be worthwhile and meaningful enough for approval.
Every single drug that comes behind us will be compared to our drug. And even if they're better, it won't disrupt our commercial position, because by that point, patients who are benefiting from our drug will not want to switch because they're benefiting from our drug.
Yeah.
That's usually how it goes in medicine.
We've seen it with like Merck's Keytruda, right? First line treating a lot of cancers, and no one wants to come off it because it works. And yet there's other ones that now, I think at some point there was 1,600 drugs studied in combination with Keytruda, because they knew that's the only way to market to show that they work better.
I would argue that Merck gives away more Keytruda for clinical trial purposes to companies that are using it in combination than it actually markets.
Really
These are things that people don't understand about why drugs cost so much money.
Yeah.
They're not getting those. It's a lot of times when you're doing a combination study, that company's donating drug to you because they know it'll help their case too.
Right.
But that's donated.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You could be in that situation down the road in a good way.
I would love to be.
All right. So those are the risks. Let's get to the bottom line here. Like, what's the upside? I mean, you mentioned $5 billion in revenues. I'm going to ask you to go put on your healthcare analyst hat again and go, how do you take sub $300, $400 million market cap company, give it $5 billion in revenue? Where does that take you?
Yeah. So first of all, you can't ignore the market environment we've been in the last 3 or 4 years. It seems like it's loosening its grip, but this has been a nuclear winter, the likes of which, and I've been in the sector for 30 years, and it's never been this bad. It's not been this bad since biotech was an industry 50 years ago. The upside here for us, I have to mention the disconnect that's currently in place. We're a $70 million market cap company with a phase 2 product for Parkinson's that may be disease modifying. Any other time on the planet, we'd be over $1 billion market cap right now. And we'd already be there. Yeah. We probably would have been bought by now, but there's this risk off mentality that is it's not just investors, but also, on the largest, on the farmer side too, because they can't take too many losses either at times like this. So what I think the upside is, we have our revenue generating potential is in the billions of dollars annually. There should be some multiple.
You can put any multiple on it. It's a lot more than a $70 million market cap.
Any number from where we're sitting right now. Yeah. This, we're a $2 stock. This stock's a buy at 10. It's a buy at 15. It's a buy at 20. Yeah. We've got 38 million shares outstanding, 48 fully diluted.
And then what's insider interest and kind of major holders?
We have, our largest holders are mainly individuals, institutions, family offices, things like that. Got it. Guys who are a little bit more first mover. We are establishing the evidence in real time, like right now, to attract the more sophisticated life science investors who write much bigger checks. Yep. And we're going to need those guys for our phase 2 study if we're going to do it alone. Right. So that's, this is just a natural progression thing. This is a switch. It's not a dial. Where probably over the next 2 months when we have this data, that should be the switch. Yeah. And that should be the inflection point.
I as a shareholder, I'll be excited for that if those are the outcomes. But I think even more importantly, this is about the patients. And, back to the beginning, you first got the bug here to be patient centric, focused on the brain and diseases that are hard to cure or fix or treat. So
we ran a 3-month study in Australia that we're coming off the back end of, right? And I went over there in September at the end of the study, and the patients were really lamenting coming off the drug. So we put together an extension, open label extension to the study so they can get 9 months. We can't enroll them in our phase 2 study because they've already been treated with the drug, and it's just
preconditions and
messes
with the data.
Right. So we have to have completely naive patients that come into the next trial, but based on, they all feel like they're benefiting, and the clinicians feel like those patients are benefiting. So the right thing to do was to continue them on. We have to continue until we get some sort of negative feedback, which we haven't gotten. Right. I think we have an ethical obligation to help as many people as we can while we can. So we've done. I
love to hear. I mean, that's what makes this space so exciting to invest in.
Yeah, it's patients first.
Patients first, and it really changes lives.
We torture these patients. Yeah, we torture these patients because we have to do a lumbar puncture at baseline. You know what that's like? You're going to be a horse needle in the back, right? Yeah. And we're drawing cerebral spinal fluid because we have to analyze that to know what the drug's doing. And then we do that at the beginning of the study and at the end of the study. And the drug doesn't taste great. Yeah. And they all want to be, and they all want to stay on the drug. Yeah.
That speaks volumes, right? So hopefully it's a leading indicator for what's to come. And we'd love to have you back and talk about the next developments.
Oh, we're going to have much to talk about. It's going to be great.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.